The purpose of this presentation is to walk you through a demonstration of Quantum's adaptive learning and assessment software. First, we'll walk through as a student so you can see the individual step-by-step feedback that they receive within the software. Then we'll go through as an instructor so that you can see how student performance information is captured on the back end via instructor assessment reports that can be generated real time. I'll go ahead and log in as a student and launch the software. Here you can see over on the left that there are a series of topics that I can select from. We currently have 9 financial topics and 1 managerial topic, CVP, and we also have more managerial topics in development. Based on the book that I'm using, I can select proprietorship or corporation and click Go. That gives me a series of problems that I can work on over here on the right. Now, every student receives different problems to work on, but the problems are conceptually the same. So we changed the business scenarios, we also changed the numbers, and we even changed the wordings within each of the transaction types. The purpose of this is to ensure that the student is always thinking conceptually about how to approach this problem. So I'll go ahead and launch the tutor, and that basically passes the problem over into the tutor to be worked on. I'll go ahead and click this transaction, prepaid $500 in cash for a 1-year insurance policy, and we're working through the accounting equation, the journal, and the ledger. And so as a student, I can go ahead and begin to enter my work. I can enter 1 step or multiple steps, and then I can have the software give me feedback as to how I'm progressing through. So here, maybe I think as a struggling student that prepaid insurance is something that should fall under equity. If students don't know what to do, we always encourage them to try something, and the software will get them on track. So I can go ahead and click Check My Work. And here, I was correct to have cash under assets, but my amount is incorrect. And you can see down here that there's feedback on what I've done within this problem. And so here I learned that this should have been a negative 500 rather than a positive. And over here, under prepaid insurance, this actually should fall under the asset account. And those instructions are down here in a couple sentences of feedback. So I can remove that under equity and go ahead and add that information under here, under my asset account, and click Check My Work again. And so here you can see that I have it all correct, but I'm given feedback as to why my answer is correct so that the student understands what it is that we're trying to accomplish within the software. Along with checking work, I can also ask questions as a student. And down here you can see there are a series of questions that I can ask at any given time. Let's move on to the next step, which is the accounting journal, and the same idea where I can enter in work and get feedback the same way. And I click Check My Work, and here it tells me that I should put debits before credits so cash is listed too soon. It also is picking up on that I did not enter in a debit, so I need to enter in a debit and a credit, and the debit should be entered in first. Let's say that I'm completely stuck. What I can do is I can click Show Solutions, and the software will go ahead and take that step for me. And here it gives me an explanation, and also, again, down below, there's additional that are available to me to ask. So we don't claim to have every question a student may ask, but we do claim to have the ones that are most important in order for them to be successful in mastering this topic. So I can ask a question, wait a minute, if cash goes down, how can that be a credit? And here you can see it gives me feedback that's talking more about student misconceptions, where oftentimes they think of their bank account or credit card and debits and credits not relative to debits and credits when we're talking about accounting. So this gives you an idea of some of the feedback and the detailed feedback that's available to students within the software. As they are working through problems, I can also at any time click Go under How Am I Doing? And that gives me step-by-step feedback as to what I'm getting right and what I'm getting wrong relative to concepts. And here I have a scorecard. So my mastery achieved at this point is low. Percent of content mastered is 23.8. So here you can see the various transaction types that I'm working on and what I've mastered, what's in progress, and what has not been attempted yet. And so if I click on one of these, rather than there being problems to work on, now I'm seeing individual transaction types involving paid cash for equipment. So I can work through these one at a time and then come back into my How Am I Doing report and essentially turn all these green. That's the assignment given to me by my instructor, and that's how I achieve mastery. So let's pause there and then switch and go into the instructor account so you can see how this How Am I Doing information is translated back to the instructor in assessment reports. So I'll go ahead and launch the assessment reporting interface as an instructor, and you can see that there is reports that I've already generated. Basically, the report is generated by a time frame. So if I give my students 1 week to work on the assignment, that's what I can select and view a report for that time frame. Here's an all topics report, which basically gives a bird's eye view of how students are doing in the course so far for the topics being worked on. So you can see the student name down the left-hand side, and you can see all the topics that are available for them to work on across the top. And so it's easy to see, using the color coding, who's doing well and who's mastering material, who's still struggling, and basically how students are doing across the various topics with the class average. Now we can also go into an individual topic and drill down into more detail as to how the class is doing. So here's one on adjusting entries, and here's class improvement. So we can see here that the class overall has improved 26% on the accounting equation under concepts and skills, and then overall about 15% for this particular topic. We can also look at class mastery, which again gives a high-level view of how the class is doing. And so here you can see that 92.3% of the class achieved high mastery, 7.7 medium, and nobody fell into the low category. And this little line that you see here is actually the national average. And so you can see this particular class is performing above the national average. And the national average is anybody that is using quantum. That can be from a community college, a four-year school, struggling students, advanced students, anybody that's working within the software. This is where the national average is currently falling. So I can also go into student mastery, and this is what instructors will use to evaluate student performance. And so here you can see that I have my students here, and we know how much time that they spent, which we focus on time on task, not time at seat, so time actually studying. The number of items or transactions that they have completed, the number of times that they requested the solution, solved with help, and then solved with no help, which is how we determine mastery, the number of questions that they've asked, and then their overall mastery on this topic. So you can see here that this group of students did very well, and we have one student here that ended up in red. And so if I click on their name, that brings up their How Am I Doing report, and I can quickly see that they basically were successful with half of the concepts, but just stopped there and didn't continue on for the rest of the concepts. You can also learn additional information here just by looking at the various reports. So here you can see this student requested the solution 27% of the time, which was the most on this list. So they probably required a little more scaffolding and hand-holding as they were going through, but at the end you can see they were able to achieve high mastery. You can also see that there's variation in time spent. So some students were able to achieve mastery in a relatively short amount of time, where other students, it may take them a little bit longer, and that's okay as long as everybody ends up at that high mastery category. And by the way, high mastery is determined as mastered more than 80% of the content. So along with this report, we can go into more detail about errors by type. And here you can see by learning concept, here's the accounting equation, the types of errors that students make within the software. And so here, put an account in the wrong category for the accounting equation. That happened 8.24% of the time. Or did not put debits first in the journal entry, which is a mistake that I made as a student, and that happened 21.9% of the time. So this can be referenced to see exactly what kind of errors students are making within the software. And then we can go even deeper to find out not only what types of conceptual errors students are making, but how does that relate to specific accounts. And so if I go over here, you can see percent of a class achieving mastery, and I look at my lowest percentage, 84.6%. That's adjusting for depreciation. That may be something that I go back and review with my class, or maybe even include on the test, since that was the lowest score of the items that were available here. The instructors can also look at the questions that students are asking within the software, and those are broken out into categories, analyzing the event, potential misconceptions. And again, this varies depending on the topic being used. And then lastly, we have the ability to download reports into Excel so that instructors can further manipulate that data if they want. So that gives you an overview of the student experience as well as the instructor experience.